So now let's start. So in this demonstration, I will be showing you the steps I took in order to create this 4" by 4" square woven piece. This particular piece is a good size for your mugs, or in my case, my plants. This particular plant happens to be Sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines. It's called jasmine in English, and its scientific Latin name is Jasminum sambac. So let's get started making this. In order to make this particular piece, we would need 5 strips of weavers, and I have them ready right here. This happens to be 1/2 inch in thickness and about 28" in length, and that should be more than enough for this particular piece. So we start off with the first strip of paper. We bring the 2 ends together. We make a slight crease in the center, so we could determine where the middle is, and we're going to make a crease in such a way that we form a right angle between this tail and then the other tail of this strip of paper. And then we take this, we flip it over, and then we make another 45-degree valley fold in order to bring this left hand tail to meet this other tail. And we're folding this in such a way that we have a slight gap in the middle. That slight gap enables us to have enough space to weave other pieces of strips of paper through, because even though paper is relatively thin, it still has a thickness that we need to account for. So we take the next strip of paper and then we start weaving. So the weaving pattern is just 1 under, 1 over, and then repeating that. So 1 under and then 1 over through the gap in the middle. And then the crease that we made, we're going to line that crease up with the center, with the ray that is created from this initial point to that direction. Okay, so now once we have done that, we're going to flip the whole thing over and make a valley fold so that this new strip of paper forms a right angle with its other tail. Then we're going to flip the whole thing over again. And we're going to then make a valley fold of this other end. Like that. And then now we're ready for our third weaver. So we're going to bring the 2 ends together, make a slight crease in the middle, and then weave. Find that center crease, bring that together, and then as you do this more and more, you're going to notice a pattern in that on the right hand side we always make a mountain fold, and then on the left side we make a valley fold. I find it much easier to make valley folds, so on this particular right hand side, instead of making a valley fold from this point of view in terms of this side of the weaving project that we're mostly looking at, what I typically do is flip the whole thing over, as I've done in the prior 2 weavers, and then make the opposing fold from this opposite side, which happens to be a valley fold. So we flip it back, to this side, this predominant side that we're looking at. And then, okay, so I'm gonna pause right here because in this particular instance, we're not going to make a valley fold and fold this end towards the top right. The reason being is because this begins kind of the halfway point of our series of 6 sections that we're weaving this particular project in. As you remember in the diagram that I showed earlier, you could ignore section 7 through 10 since we're just making a simple a simple square woven object, and it happens to be a square. If you want to, just as an aside right now, if you want to have a piece that's longer this way, then one quick way of doing that is simply increasing the number of weavers that you weave in section 2. In this particular case, it's a perfect square, so it's going to be the same. Okay, now we're at this point. We take our 4th weaver, the second to last penultimate one, make a crease in the center, and then weave it through. One under, one over. Find that crease, line that crease up with the center line, starting from this corner right here, this point. Then we're going to make a mountain fold on this, but I prefer making valley folds instead, so I flip the whole thing over and then make that valley fold from this perspective, from this side. Flip it over again. We have this. Then we take our last weaver, do the same, bring the ends together, make a slight crease in the center, and then weave it through in that 1 under, 1 over pattern. And then now I'm going to pause right here and we're going to just look at what we have right now so far. So I just want to point out, given that we're making a perfect square, you know, all the sides are of equal length, the number 3 will be a recurring number in this project because of the fact that 3 is the height of section 1 triangle that we established earlier, 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to see that number repeat by the first instance of the repetition is right here. There's 3 unwoven weavers that are pointing to the top left. And then now, let's continue weaving. Okay, before that, so now we have used up all the 5 weavers that we established as being necessary to create this particular square piece. So this is the bottom left corner, and then now we have to fold this tail in such a way that we form the corner on this side. So first we flip the whole thing over, make a valley fold, and then while we're at this side, I'm gonna rotate the woven project right now slightly to make it easier. And then we're going to make another valley fold on this tail to bring it to line up with its other tail. now if we flip the whole thing over, we can see that we have established, we have that corner over there. And then I'm just going to take this, I'm going to, it has been creased, but I'm just going to temporarily bring it over here because we're going to be weaving this towards the top left. We are now on section 3. Section 2, I did not necessarily point out, but section 2 are these two weavers right here that form that parallelogram. So now we're on to weaving section 3, using this as the weft, and these are the warps if we want to be technical. So we're going to bring this, take this one, and then the rest of these over, bring this underneath, weave it through. There we go. And then now we're going to continue making that section 3 right triangle. We need to fold this in such a way that it continues this right edge of this square. So we're going to flip the whole project over, make a valley fold right there, temporarily let this hang loose on the right, and then we're going to weave this through this one, and then now the last weaver for section 3 is this one. We're going to continue what we just did. Make a valley fold from the other side, temporarily unfold that, let it hang loose on the right side, and then weave it through this. Okay. And then now we're done with section 3, and then now we can continue weaving this section 4, and which we have kind of slightly started with this. So to do that, we're going to be weaving these remaining 3 tails through these. So we're going to work with this one first. And then now that's woven, we're going to work with this next. And then we're going to weave this next. And then now let's just, it's good once in a while to pause and have a checkpoint and see if you're on the right track, if we're on the right track of, completing what we set out to do. So we should have 5 weavers on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's good. And then we're not gonna now going to check this side, 1, 2, 3. So we're kind of missing one. So we kind of deviated from this, but this is a good learning point to show that this is just a sequence of sections that I thought would be good for beginners to follow. But once you start doing a lot more of these planar weaving, you start to develop a sense of where you are in the project and can pivot, turn, and adjust accordingly. Uh, and it will become a second nature to you over time. So I'm going to turn the project over, make a valley fold right there, and then that should be 1, 2, 3, 4th one. Let's just weave this through these 3 tails. And we should do one more in order to make that perfect square. Flip the whole project over, make a valley fold right there, and then weave this accordingly. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, then now we have started weaving this parallelogram shape section, and so we'll just continue finishing that off. So we'll take the leftmost tail, we're going to make a valley fold, then now we have to weave this tail that we just creased through these. So following that pattern, that alternating pattern, 1 under, 1 over. Okay, and then now let's just count how many we have on this side. 1, 2, 3. So let's do the 4th one. And then now the 5th one. And now we can see the square right here. And then now, since we're going to just make a square, we can now proceed to the bind off phase of weaving these loose ends into the project and hiding them, and then trimming off the excess. So at this point, given that we're going to be binding off, we want the tails that are pointing to the top left to be above the tails that are pointing to the right. In this case, the tails that are pointing to the top right are above these. So we need to bring these over on top of these. So we can just simply do that one at a time. Okay, now we have these tails that are pointing to the top left above the tails that are pointing to the top right. And then now to bind off, I will To bind off, we simply, methodically just fold these to form the top edge of the square, and then weaving this through in an alternating fashion, and repeating that series of steps until you bind off all the tails. Just wanted to mention that before you start binding off, you might want to miter these ends off a 45-degree angle. This 45-degree angle cut just makes it a little bit easier and assist in pushing these tails through and under these weavers that have been woven and that you're weaving these tails underneath of. So once you have completed that, you will get something like this, and you can extrapolate this by increasing the number of weavers that you're using, increasing the length of this, for instance, in order to have a wider piece, and then repeating section 7 through 10 multiple times in order to have a piece that are of a higher height. So that's how we weave in a planar 45-degree kind of fashion. Let me just show you some other examples of things that I've woven. So this larger square, this rectangle that basically I repeated section 7 through 10 twice in order to have 2 squares. I have a larger mat right here that's in a square fashion that has very tight weave, very small gaps in between, and then another one of the same size, but I wove this somewhat looser, and there's bigger gaps in between. So thank you for tuning in.